Starting another turn. I don't want to go into life anymore. What do we got here? We're just going to hide our head from that. We rolled for the artillery and air support. Air support is also rolled for. We got 1 p.m. heavy artillery delay. The Germans are fine. I got 2 new tanks. I positioned them both up down here in the south because if anything, I have too many tanks in some places. And I mean, I'd like to start repositioning tanks, but I can't reposition them between different divisions and to tell you or between different corps. And to tell you the truth, there's so much ravine here, stupid moth, that once I get through this, there's not going to be any room for tanks to be particularly effective. Tanks are effective here, though. There's no ravines in my way, so I'm going to try to plow forward in the south and then maybe cut down and start, with an outflanking motion. Soissons itself, I don't have to get as close to. I have a lot more room to get to there before any kind of points get generated. Plus, the points for the stuff here is just not worth as much as the points for the stuff here. I would ideally, though, like to exit a unit off the map and a unit into a Soissons box at the same time to double my victory points for a turn. However, if the going goes too slow, I'll just pick, going off the map in favor of that. So clearly cutting through here seems like the more valuable place. That's where all the victory points are lying. Again, I'm using the maximal possible firepower that I have available, everything except my heavy artillery and this thing that's too far out of range. Here, hey, I want to gain that ground as fast as possible. Great. And after I degrade the position, I'll push on. It just seems most important to get as much ground as possible, as fast as possible. Here seemed like a good place to throw my additional air power point. This is this command, which is this artillery, so I needed to use a non-medium firepower if I want to get in there. That's the only place I can. If I can break through in this front, there's not much holding there. There's victory point hex, and I can start to kind of pocket this and force it back further and further. However, I did think this was very important, because if I can break through that, I can conceivably use my armor and coordinate an attack there. It'll be a low intensity attack in the PM side of the turn, but this is the weak spot currently. Of course, they might fall behind the river line, which then changes the world a little bit. But they got to fall back behind this river line, because if I downgrade things, I'll be able to attack, presumably, into here. Might not be able to get there easily. We'll see. Probably would. But anyway, all depends on that. The Germans have 1 defensive fire. They can only drop it on a prepared unit. There's an advantage if they drop it on a prepared unit that they have a prepared unit next to it. At least that's the way I'm reading this for now. So, given all that, this may be the best unit that I can hit. But this one may be more important. Do I have a prepared? I don't have a prepared marker. This is an Entente one. So this may be the only one I get the bonus on. I think it's worth throwing where I got the bonus, taking advantage of it while I've got it, rather than looking for the most tactically advantageous space and just deal with that. That's the end of German artillery, though, for this day until nighttime. An attack here, it didn't go too well, even though it was on the 6-to-1 chart and only -1. I got an XD, which means my 2 units are now in reforming. That is going to mean that they are at best half strength, which weakens the situation. Plus, I'm not in a great position up here. But the Germans decided to withdraw because this still provides almost as good a defensive position, maybe as good as where they were. Yeah, I give a little ground, but I've cost the enemy some significant hits. So these are getting closer and closer to being spent divisions. Move over here, and this little cluster is problematic because if I want to launch these attacks, and this one I can't. Ooh. So my prepared marker here, I could launch an attack here. It's not good odds. It's like 2-to-1 at -1. I don't want to do that, so I think this is all I do because I don't have a prepared marker that I was able to put on this unit. Not that I don't have a marker, it's that I spent too many movement points getting there. I think that was the reforming unit. We're also losing prepared markers off the things that didn't get a chance to assault, which means they're not going to get that sort of free advance coming forward. I don't know what that all ends up meaning, but it's not a good situation as I see it right now. So like, okay, losing this one, no big deal, but I lost this one because I'm not adjacent to the enemy anymore. I thought I was going to get an advantage out of that, an extra space out of it that I'm not getting. Initially, I thought that the problems would lie more in failure on the defense, that understanding the complexity of the defense would be more likely to cause big gaps to open up, and it may still because, but I didn't have a lot of control over where my setup was because of what looks like it's going to be a breakthrough up here. But I'm finding it's probably it's the difficulties on the offense. Now, obviously, I made my cheating early in the game, which gave the Entente an advantage anyway. They seem to be doing okay, but if I were to just hit one of these locations, even though there's like a point per turn or something, I would not win the game. I have to clear, because remember, there's negatives for each German-controlled non-victory point location. So I have to kind of clear those. Those are worth 2 victory points each if I don't get them. And so I really need to push the Germans out of the towns that don't have victory point markers. The towns with victory point markers might be worth points just by getting close to, although not the 1-pointers. Assault phase. We're essentially taking 2-to-1 losses, at least. No. Yeah. I'm marking up the X's to 2s in order to gain me ground, but and the German units are getting reduced quite into much smaller things, but I feel like it's the only way that I can guarantee the hits forward. Now, if I take one hit, it might be 1-to-0 losses if they choose to retreat. So, but at least with the 2 losses, I'm forcing units to become remnants and forcing the ground forward. Some places I didn't choose to attack because the odds were just not that good. Of course, wherever I bombarded, I launched attacks. That's going to give me voluntary fallbacks. And again, I don't know. This unit is kind of securing this position, right? So, like, sure, I could fall back to here, but that wouldn't be that advantageous. I want to take a look at the retreat rules because I have been retreating only the minimum. So if I take a 1-hex optional retreat to reduce a loss, I'm not allowing myself to retreat further, and I don't know if that's legitimate. So I'm going to have to look that up. You know, I know it's legal, but I don't know if I'm allowed to retreat more without taking the additional effects. Because one of the things that's been stopping me is if you get flung back, you're facing, you know, if you get flung back one hex, but you want to retreat more, you get an additional disorder for running further. So I want to make sure about that. Shit, I forgot completely about the German corps artillery. Yeah, they had no effect last time, so yeah, I kind of just completely forgot about them. But they could have dropped some bombs this time. You are allowed to retreat further. That may well influence some decisions. So this does not want to retreat back to here because, and I could do that because the last hex doesn't have to be on the path, because that would allow sort of a slip through and all kind of problems. Here's the problem though. If I'm here, okay, this one could retreat to here. That would give me a little bit more defensive positioning. But then it becomes like this town becomes not terribly valuable to retreat to. How dangerous would it be if I do retreat the extra hex to here? And I'll do all these kind of at once. That opens up fucking garbage everywhere. That opens up a retreat here that I think I want to make. But anyway, and definitely this becomes exposed if I retreat to here. See, this is the whole problem, is that like there's not a lot holding the line, and what's holding it, I kind of can't afford to shift around too much right now. But yeah, what is the consequence if I'm here? The attacker could move to here, right? Let's put something here so that I see it. This is gone. The attacker moves to here. They move to here. That means they have cut off these hexes from entry. But I can't move on to here without covering this hex, because otherwise I'll be running out of my line of communications. The supply, not the command, and so that's just verboten. But if I'm here and I position something here-ish, well, that won't work. So actually, I think this may be safe. I hope I'm not going to screw up. But that's giving up a lot of ground that I can probably fall back on later. Yes, it's getting me to more defensible territory, but you know what? Ground is so important in this that and tanks are effective here and everything, so screw it. I'm going to just hold the line with these minimal retreats that I've made. This is safe. Yeah, okay. Voluntary withdrawals. Again, I don't think this guy's not in that much danger. Getting a retreat marker kind of screws your life up. So unless I really don't want to be where I am, he couldn't have retreated into here. You know, I'm trying to see, hey, could I defend this better? I don't think so. I don't think so. Which is going to put me to the Entente movement. I'm going to charge my battery, both for my device and for myself. So for some reason my camera insisted that I set the date and time again. That's always a random value. It doesn't show up anywhere for you, but it does for me. On my saves and whatnot. So the Entente has pushed forward, and it actually looks like it's launching a number of hasty attacks. Basically, where I could throw prepared markers down, I did, with the assumption that, you know, making the prepared assaults is just more valuable. But where I didn't have enough movement points because I did an assault already or whatever, Remember, I'm no longer on that first turn surprise. And I wasn't in the PM turn either. I hope I didn't fuck that up somehow. This gun dragged itself into range. That's one thing that massive German retreats could do, is outrun the enemy headquarters. Of course, doing that got me out of range of my own guns. That's going to put me on a possibility to do fallbacks by the non-phasing player. Now this is a hard call. You know, your remnants, do you want them to stand and fight? They're pretty beat up anyway, and they're not that useful. But of course, in the future, they could become useful if you pull them back. Of course, also if I pull them back, I won't have the room to maneuver them, etc. And I really can't afford to give up this ground. So I think I'm going to more or less stand. I'll take a look, make sure that's the case, and then we drop into further bombardments. Germans still have their 2 artillery that I didn't that I didn't fire off before. The Entente. I'm confused seeing the Entente have like Prussian gray, Prussian blue uniforms, or Feld gray as their numbers, and this not, but I believe that is the correct thing, because if you look, these are kind of more in alignment with that color. So, however you want to take that. The field artillery is being, or the core level artillery is being used on the use it or lose it principle here, and that's the one Entente shot is for that reason. It's almost impossible for that to have any effect. Only on a 6, and it'll just do a disorganization, but that's the only thing I could shoot at. The Germans, likewise, I'm probably not going to want to fire during my phase. I could, you know, but might as well take advantage of trying to disorganize units a little bit as they're coming in. They've got a little bit better chance, but I would have been better off when I had those prep markers down, which are all gone now. This attack is probably not actually going to happen. We're looking at 7, but he's reforming, which means if I look on the back of here, he's actually only 3 strength points facing 3 strength points. Not a great trade. I made some attack plans, not just this one, but over here, an attack against this. And these guys all made attacks somewhat consistent with, well, no, they weren't necessary. These were somewhat successful, didn't really gain any ground, I think. Indeed, because I have no markers left on me, but I caused a little bit of damage there. That's all. Up here was the only place where I really gained anything. He drove all the way back to Saint-Remy-Blanze because I'm kind of convinced that it's not that important to protect the final hex row on the game board. I hope. It's certainly not going to fall apart right away, and I've got reserves coming up. But there is some danger to this. Speaking of the reserves, these are big divisions. I don't have any divisions that I can create out of the original units on the board, I think. No, because there'd be divisional units sitting here that I don't have, that don't exist. So the only divisions that are on the game are these reinforcement units. They're kind of big things you can drop in the way, and you can say, yeah, you're not getting through this hex. Or if you are, you're going to really have to burn your points to get anything like an attack on that. The problem, of course, is, you know, the forces are deteriorating so quickly, I need to cover more ground. So I can't just throw a big division in, so I'm going to have to throw a breakdown in. The breakdowns only have, well, they have 1 star of combativeness less. Anyway, that's going to put us to, yeah, this was a retreat. That's going to put us to the advanced step where I can push ahead of hex anywhere where I'm not in contact with the enemy anymore, but had an attack marker placed. That is here and here. I'm gonna take a break after the Entente turn, but honestly, the German turns are so light. I shifted my artillery a little bit. This one forward, actually. This one a little to the side. This area is looking like a big gap right now. But I think I can afford a gap there, sort of, kind of. I mean, I really can't, but the ravines and whatnot are going to make it harder for other troops to move through there. I sent the new division up here, here, and here. This guy obviously transiting on his way. They're committed to the AG water by this. This is not going to be the most trivial way to notice things because the coloration on these, the letter is really the identifier, the A there. The 34th Division is almost unreadable unless you really pull the unit up. But the A isn't very big either. I wish those were a little bit more blaring out. That matches the A's here. It's still not trivial to see. But again, there's only 2 corps for the Germans, so it shouldn't be too terribly hard to keep things from wandering into the wrong area, although I'm sure I'll manage to violate the rules that way, or my intentions. I dropped a couple of prepared markers, but they're actually useless. The Germans are not getting any additional artillery during the PM turn, and I'm not planning on making assaults with those units, so it was kind of a waste. But part of it was I forgot. But after I forgot, I'm not removing them because I want to get in the habit of slapping those down when appropriate. All right, but now it is time for a break. Kind of like about the pace on this game, although I was expecting it to travel a little quicker than it did, but other than that expectation being foiled, looking at it, on the AM turn for the Entente, because you got to set up at night, you've got all kinds of things you can do, and so it's a complex turn. But then on the German side of the AM turn, there's almost nothing to do. The Germans are just not capable of doing a hell of a lot. Then you get to the PM side, and you've sort of blown your wad, probably, unless the Germans withdrew in the AM before the AM turn, and you had to set up for a PM attack. But basically, before you walk down, in my case, before I walk down to start a new turn, I kind of know what I'm going to be facing. So I come down here knowing the Entente turn is not going to be that hefty. And now I start looking, and I'm like, geez, I don't know if I have any attacks set up that I want to do terribly much, because there's interference in a lot of places. So for example, this guy's set up, yeah, he might want to attack here, but I can't throw this in to that without attacking this, and I can't attack that. Well, I can attack that if I make this attack, but I don't have a marker on that, so I'm not going to get an attack there. So, I've got a very limited number of potential attacks. So I've got this attack possible. I've got one here I can do, which is just this unit. If I do this, I could do just that, but that's a horrible attack. And that's it. That's all I'm set up for at this point, even though I'm in connection with the enemy and everything. Now, the first turn was a little hairier because on the AM turn you get more movement points with all your units that were assaulting, the surprise conditions, etc. I shifted some tanks around, but I'm really tempted to either not make an attack or maybe make one here. I gotta decide, I guess. So I might not fire my artillery right now because I'm gonna have a fair number of hasty attacks that I can make. Certainly in the center here, that's what's gonna happen because I overwhelmed the Germans there, but I don't have any attacks prepared. Elsewhere on the board is a little iffier, Do I want to turn this guy into a hasty attack so that I can make this attack, you know, or with as many units. Same thing here. Do I want to turn it into a hasty? Probably not. The prepared assaults are on such a better table. The hasty attacks, even when they're on the good side of the table, you're just not going to really move the enemy. And you're certainly not going to batter them into submission usually, unless you get a lot of pluses on there. So, you know, I think I'll probably use my artillery right now, but I'm having a hard time making that decision. I'm continuing to push pretty hard in the center and on the flank here. We'll see how that works out. Lots of hasty assaults. That may not work well. I chose not to make this one. That's just too crappy. Those attacks were overly optimistic, like this one where I took damage for no reason. And so I called off a bunch of them. This is, I think, the only one I did over here. That was successful. Over here I had really good odds, but I didn't budge him. And the 2 units I retreated, I'm not able to advance towards because I'm still in a zone of control. So I think the only advance I have is here if I want to make it. Is there any damn reason? Yeah. I think moving into this space is actually of use. Just to deny the Germans from being able to retake that defensive space. And that'll put things over to the German turn. I don't know how much is going to happen there. I've got 1 regiment that can move a little bit. Oh no, it got joined. Oops. Yeah, so I don't know if there's a whole hell of a lot I can do. Especially since I can't prep right now. That move does something. That throws this guy into danger. I started with the German movements. I gotta look at him. So this is a zone of control here, and this is a zone of control here. So I have to fall back. And that means I could drop back to there. That would cover the artillery unit. The other option would be to fall back all the way back to here, and my line starts looking really weak at that point. So I will put this into play. This is a safe retreat. He wasn't a damaged unit. But yeah, this is less than pleasant overall. Divisions are beaten up enough on the Entente side, barely, to be needing to withdraw. By the way, you can still use them, I think. I think they can still count in an attack. They just can't be the lead unit. They can't pick up an assault marker or a hasty attack marker. So you can still contribute their strength if you keep them on. So they're not completely just oh, I need something to garrison this flank, you know, to prevent the Germans from doing something terrible on it. The tanks, lost a bunch of our tanks, and the couple we got all the first turn tanks went away. The couple we got this turn are wearing down. We got another tank unit next turn. Then we go without until the turn after. We miss a turn with no tanks, but we do start getting some divisions to replace. But man, I feel like everything's steaming down. Somebody wrote, is it possible for the Central Powers to go, well, for the Germans to kind of win this one? Well, I don't think they played it. I think they were asking the question in the sense of, look, the situation was fucking hopeless for them. Their army's collapsing, whatever, as opposed to having played it and you know, seen the victory point balance and whatnot. Because I gotta tell you, I'm having a hard time going forward, and I've cheated for the Entente early on with the tank placements in the ravines that they weren't allowed to have. So, but right now I'm having a difficult choice on the German remnant incorporation. I got rid of one real easy. I don't know, he might have been here or something, but he, you know, he had some stun on him. I've got this one here who's shocked all to hell. He's pretty damn useless, so maybe I just want to withdraw him. However, that's a nasty gap in my line if I do that. And I don't have that regiment that was heading over, do I? Or is that... that's this one. And this may be where I got the remnant from. I could push this guy over, but, you know, there's just too much territory to cover. This was an interesting candidate because, yeah, you know, he's in better shape than this guy, but he's also a whole lot, he's in a kind of position that doesn't look like it matters too much. It's going to be slow to move through here, but you know, he is defending this space, and that's a flank I don't want to give up, so I'm going to kill the guy who really sucks. However, you are left with these hard choices where, you know, the Germans have to give ground somewhere, and you know, something like this I could give up because, hey, it's almost to Soissons, screw it, man. But there's still this entrance to there, so yeah. Bombardment, the Entente had 2 points, I'm dropping them here. No terrain there, and that's kind of an obnoxious position right now. And the Germans just barely in range for their medium artillery to hit there. Now, this is sort of, especially when there aren't a lot of points. If there were a huge amount of artillery points, and the Germans start to get some nice defensive artillery as things go on. If there were a huge amount of artillery points, you might be able to do things, but right now it feels like a situation where, yeah, you know, I got to hit damaged stuff to have any chance of it doing anything, because the most I'm going to get is a disruption probably, with the penalties for night. And that's really going to be recovered very shortly. So let's take care of these, take a look at what they're going to be. So I got a 2-point shot there. It's got the -1 for night, and that is all that's going for it. A 3, I get a big D on that. A big D means that this unit takes a shock, which means it will not fully recover. Well, it wouldn't anyway. And this one goes to an RFM. Great. How about a shock too? And that's, you know, that means that I've left them with a bad night's sleep, basically. Up here, a lot more effy, but it's one of the few units that is in questionable shape for the Entente. I guess this would have been another option there. But I didn't see the reform marker underneath there. Yeah, I mean, I could shift that if I want to. You know what? I'm gonna put this here instead. For whatever it's worth. It's just a -1 at night, though. So I needed to roll a 6 to have any impact whatsoever. And that's going to put me now into another chance to fall back, which maybe I take, because this space is beginning to look really iffy. To do all these fallbacks, but I'm not sure I actually want to do them yet, because the thing is, you can see the line I'm creating. If I do it now, the Entente gets to move first, and I don't want to let them get close to me. I have another opportunity to fall back in a moment, so let me keep those units pinned. I laid a number of prepared markers down. There were a couple of places where I thought, wow, you know, if I had been more clever during the last German turn, I might have fallen back. And now, had I done that, I'd have a retreat marker on me, so I couldn't maneuver back into position. Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, is there some way that I can kind of slip around and get more maneuverability by utilizing the system a little more than I am? But you know, it really is fairly hard to get a move on things. Now, the fact that these all fled, well, that opens me up. I get some advances now that are prepare markers that are not in an enemy's zone of control. So, yeah, now we've got not here, but we've got a bunch of potential advances here, which is where I'm really making my main thrust, it appears. And contrary to last turn, first of all, most of the German units have recuperated. This stack is still in some trouble. But contrary to the last turn, I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, there's no regiments that were paired together, no remnants that were paired together that I could turn into a regiment. And I'm just kind of laughing at the stuff that's holding the line here. It's nothing, you know, and it's pretty easy to break through. But again, the Entente is running out of gas, and they're running out of gas fast. But we'll see. Got another division and another tank coming, but the Germans have another full division of reinforcements coming, which, you know, that could come in either here or coming up this way. This looks closer, because I'm beginning to think I have enough to kind of hold things here, but this is just so broken. All right. Starting into the AM turn of the third day, rolled for the artillery. The Entente is getting a medium in the PM, and the Germans are getting a heavy in the PM, but otherwise you have them all day. Some tanks, new units coming in. Haven't figured out where the tanks are going yet. I did want to point out a couple of things the designer pointed out to me, which was, I think, one was that there was a unit here that maybe I could have forced into a withdrawal right at the beginning of the game. Looks weird, but like, I don't know where I would have expected, maybe closer, maybe further in or whatever. I didn't think I had anything where the lines could be bypassed easily, but he was looking at the vids, so I'm sure that, you know, it makes a lot of sense to me that I missed defending something, you know, and getting used to the trying to slip around and force units to withdraw type of thinking is, it takes a little bit of effort there. Obviously, though, I mean, if something could be gotten around to the degree that it would have been forced into a withdrawal right away, that should have been glaring to me, in the sense that, like, you would have been able to move, you weren't locked in or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. But he also pointed out, a number of things. I don't remember them all. That these are the Americans, actually, which I didn't think they were, because they're bigger. They have more strength points. So, like, there was this discussion about the Americans have the same size, same strength as the French. Maybe it just means that they don't have a high combativeness or whatever. But the impression that I got when I was reading the designer's notes was that the American units would be the same as the French line units. And no, apparently they are these bigger, heavier units, which I don't know. I must have misunderstood what was being imparted there. Okay. Well, I got to try to figure out what I can make forward. But, you know, in terms of, like, the experience that I'm having at this point, which is, oh, look, I was able to make a pretty big breakthrough on that AM and continue the push in the PM when, you know, the surprise allows me a lot of movement points and whatnot. But after that, it becomes still World War One. You know, the Germans become much harder to break apart. I actually feel like the weakness here and the fact that I don't have troops to throw in to defend that sector yet is a sign that maybe the Entente's actually doing reasonably well. Which would make sense because, again, I cheated for them with the artillery. The word is tanks. I woke up not long ago. I wake up a lot now. The last couple days I've been, sleeping in little bits, and every time I wake up, I'm a little stunned. Tank choice is a hard call. One, I can put it here and try to push this attack forward. It's only a 2-to-1 now. Or I could continue feeding more armor, well, not there, into this sector where I'm already doing pretty damn well. But could, of course, do better, I already have tanks here and here, though. Putting it here, see, I mean, this is only 2-to-1 as well. I think I'm going to put, see, things get cluster fucked here, but that's small. I'm just having such a hard time making any kind of decision in the game because I have such limited resources. And the attacks are starting to look worse and worse and worse. Those first turn attacks with the mandatory retreats were great. The artillery is being dropped. I feel like whenever I make a decision of that nature, I have to come in. I don't know how much. It's sort of that mechanisms versus narrative type thing, where here I'm trying to show the mechanism that in play, but the Entente concentrated here, but also put on the sides. This is kind of this one I may not need. Let's not fire that off yet. Let's wait until we have an attack we're gonna make. That's not even legal. But then the Germans dropped a couple here because there's almost, if I'm going to attack here, I've got to attack there, and I don't want that breaking apart. And then some defense here to prevent that from falling apart, mainly because the artillery is too far away to support this unit, which is going to be attacked there, presumably. This didn't go poorly. This was a known soak attack, so that I can make attacks here, and I got hosed on it. Yeah. Not in good shape. These guys both succeeded in their attacks, at least to some extent. We got retreats in both directions, some of that voluntary. Over here, another voluntary retreat. They kind of took their hit there, but I held there, but again, at loss. This was a point where the intensity on an X was chosen to be low so that I don't lose one of these two units. Although, because it's so early in the day, it probably doesn't actually matter. But I want to make, because you don't lose the units until night, and my units are both at 6 strength points. I probably should have, you know what? I should take the extra hit. I should take the extra hit. Force that withdrawal, because this unit, which was staying here, would fall into being a remnant. And it is a remnant. No, it's actually required to retreat because it is a remnant. So that would be a disorganized remnant there. This unit has a retreat marker. This unit doesn't. It is actually important to keep that distinction. Yeah. And I took the point reduction. Yeah, so UPS but I don't think it's for me. I took the point reduction already because I wanted to hold this hex. But if I did, now if I have 2 hits, I have to take the point reduction. Well, yeah, I have to take the point reduction because all I have is remnants, and I have to retreat as well. So that actually works out pretty well for me. It's a little tank, so it doesn't hurt me to go into there. The one thing that's hurting me, though, is that these units, well, this one will have enough movement to prepare an attack. But see, here's the thing. I've got some units that prepared their attack, one unit that didn't. And now the 2 units that prepared don't have enough movement points to prepare again. So I don't know. Let me see. If I move 1, 2, 3 with that unit, avoiding this space for the reason that I want to put a prepare marker here. And then I can do a light attack here if I really want to, but I don't. Yeah. So this is the whole problem, is I could make a prepared attack from 1 hex into here, and that's perhaps worth doing. 5 strength points to 2 is not very good, but they're only remnants, and I'd be doing a prepared attack, and I have a tank. Yeah, the balancing of all the decisions is just killing me. I generally, yeah, I don't like thinking this hard. I definitely don't like thinking this hard. That's going to put me, though, on the German voluntary fallbacks. I don't know if I have any. Can I hold this line, or is this unit compromised, is the question. So if a unit moves into here, this unit is compromised. Right now, it's not, though, because there are zones here, zones of control, so my zones of influence don't go back there. But, now I see it. Now I see why he was potentially in problems. Okay, so here's the thing. This may have just collapsed. This may not be voluntary. This is non-voluntary, if that's the case. So I've got a zone of control here. What is my supply line? My supply line would normally be straight back, and that's what's getting cut right now. That's what I got to keep in mind, is that, no, it's not that I have to surround units completely, but I'm close to this, but not close enough that I can get an advantage. But this unit does have to retreat, and its retreat will be all the way back to here, going 1, 2, and then back. Is that safe? I don't know. I don't know if it's the best thing. I also never know, to some extent, you need to put individual counters on individual units, like any of the shock and reform markers. Those have to be on a per unit basis. Obviously, same with loss numbers. But the retreat markers, I'm kind of doing anything under the retreat marker in the stack has retreated. But yeah, it might make more sense to put retreat markers on individual units. I'm having a hard time with that, though. Okay, so collapsing this is huge, though. That means this section is a lot iffier, right? These 2 hex openings are not necessarily very well, they're not very strong. And now I have to make a decision, would I be better off pulling back or not? This line looks pretty solid. Looks pretty solid, but then, and then to here, although that thing's so shot that if an attack can be gotten on it, it's probably going to go. But this section of the line, I've got too big a gap between the units, and that's what happened here. Is I was able to take advantage of such a thing and just collapse that entire little sector. So I don't know if I want to withdraw anything here. I certainly have some room. So I think the answer is yes. The problem here is I want to withdraw into, I want to hold this hex, but I think I want a hex in between and then this hex to prevent some kind of skimming around me on the river. I am getting closer to the Soissons line here. So canceling this, I can still trace a supply line that's 4 hexes. 4 hexes is important because this is 4 hexes. I can't, so, I mean, I've got to trace to the closest one, but I can choose which one's closest. Now, 4 is the maximum length, so it's not that big a deal. But this is actually a safe defense still, I believe. Giving way here doesn't really help. He can still prepare. So, yeah, I think I'm okay, which means we go to the Entente maneuver phase. And there's one unit I know what I'm going to do. This guy's going to come join. Everything else is going to be this, you know, this, what for me is a really, really painful geometric analysis, which, you know, if you're a fan of the old Avalon Hill classics, especially, a lot of times those feel very, very geometrical. Not Anzio so much, but yeah, a lot of those feel that way. Like, yeah, I played the old Stalingrad. I played Africa Corps. Also had the same thing, where it's like I just have to burn so much brain on, well, how do I maneuver my piece so it's in just the right place? And that's the same kind of thinking that I kind of don't like in things like ASL either. But, you know, I mean, a lot of people love that kind of thinking, especially among the older gamers. But, man, this is like a new twist to create that same kind of thought process and same kind of, and you know, it feels, to me, it feels kind of like the same kind of, I have the same kind of gripe about my worker placement Euros, is like, and I don't know what it is. You know, I mean, I don't think it's that, like, I think there's sufficient thinking in other games. It's just somehow it doesn't relate for me in quite the right way when I'm trying to manipulate these zones, and this double zoning aspect is really painful. So I don't know. Worked out my movement, and it took quite a while and a lot of effort for all of my units except for this center core here. And I'll get to that, but it's this work this way, basically come here and say, gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do with those until I see what's going to happen here. I was working my way down. I need to be able to understand whether or not I'm going to be able to launch an attack on this, and or if I want to push further down here, or what's going on. Here I'm looking at kind of a shitty soak attack to get these guys blown away, and I'm not thrilled about it. But here I'm setting up prepared attacks so that I can blast through that area. I count on the prepared attacks a lot better. Here I'm not going to have prepared attacks though, because I made assaults on the last turn. Plus then I have this extra unit to come up, and I don't know how far it can get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. that's about as far as it goes. So it's not going to be in play anyway. But yeah, you know, I mean, the decision making here, and then this unit I had here, which it really wasn't going to do any good there, but here it's preventing the Germans from exploiting what would have been otherwise a gap heading towards my headquarters, and who knows what that would do. In particular, I could only get to here. I couldn't get into here because there's a zone here. And what that means is I don't exert any pressure on this space, and this space is the vital space because that's his retreat route, well, also his supply route. So that's the space that I have to get control of to force him out of position. And you know, there's this sort of, hey, I'm doing a soak attack here and attacking here, because then if I get those out of the way, I'm in this position and I can start swinging around his back, and he either has to withdraw at that point or soon after, or I'm going to be able to start exerting pressure right behind him because he can't trace that line directly back. That directly back is the thing that's one of the things that's hard to grasp. So, you know, when I bring up something like Stalingrad or something where you're trying to cut supply, get the half strength or whatever, well, here, and some games, you know, if you can isolate a unit, you just destroy it. I don't know which way Stalingrad goes on that. I shouldn't bring it up, you know, a game I've played like twice in my life, 3 times in my life, that everybody knows. But here, instead, it's like I force them to retreat. That's a little different. But I don't have to completely surround them. I just have to get an angle. They can't build a defense that's not north-south. They can't build like a portion of their defense on the east-west line or anything until you get close to Soissons. And the thinking involved in that, that's probably what I missed here, was that there was a way of getting a piece here and here or something that would have prevented this guy and forced him to retreat. That kind of thinking is really hard, you know. And it's like, it's learning new shit, learning new geometric patterns to play. And as your brain ossifies, that becomes harder and harder. Especially so when it's kind of familiar. So this looks like a hex game of the old variety. The same geometry should sort of apply, is kind of, you know, just the assumption. There's no reason for it. There's no reason to argue that old geometry from the 70s was the right stuff to cover things. In a lot of ways, it's not. Whenever it's loosened, I'm happier. I never liked it. But here, it's not really loosened. It's actually tightened in a certain way. And what I was thinking was actually, this is kind of the problem I have with CDGs, where each CDG has its own special movement, interception, coordination between the point-to-point movement roles that is somewhat different. And so the expectations you bring from one CDG to the next, it's not like what you could bring from one 70s era hex encounter to the next. And you know, I don't know. I'm looking for some kind of excuse here or explanation for why I have particular difficulties with certain types of rules and whatnot. You know, so when I face the Paths of Glory versus the Washington's War or something along those lines, it's one kind of problem. Here, I feel like I have that same problem, along with this sort of inherent, I don't see the geometries that well and that easily, and I don't process them that well. So yeah. I'm running to the problem of, do I want to close with units that I can't either attack with a hasty attack right now, and I can't drop a prep marker on? So, for example, to get to here, it's going to cost me 4 movement points. Well, these are prepped units, so they can't do a prep fire anyway, an assault next turn anyway. But I could do a hasty attack right now. So, but 4 is the only movement points I have, and it's going to take me 2 to make an attack. Here, I could get into place, but I can't get more than 1 unit against it. Do I want to? Is this the unit I want? Which one of these units do I want? But I want one of them, and I want to try that attack. But the movement here is more questionable. So do I want to move into this hex is really the question. Do I want to engage with the enemy, or do I keep some level of mobility for what? I'm not going to have a prep fire next turn, but I'm going to have an assault next turn in the PM. I'm not going to be able to assault overnight, so all I get is a limited attack on this. And is there any reason I want to lock myself in? I don't think I do, but let me think some more. If I have, and these guys are going to be harder to cause to force withdrawals to again because of the Soissons. The idea that this is an important enough place that we can east-west defend it. But yeah, I'm trying to express words for something, and I'm just so frustrated trying to use words to explain what is just this tangled mess in my head. To that thinking, where the hell do I want my tank? Because maybe I'll be able to do an attack next turn. Not a prepared, because I'm not going to be able to drop a prepare, but maybe a light attack or whatever. Well, okay, no, not this turn, not the PM turn, because I won't get a chance to shift my tanks. But this is the whole thing is, where do you want your tanks so you can shift them to another unit that is going to be able to use them? And I don't know. I am just growing so fucking frustrated trying to deal with this kind of thinking. I like my games simpler. It's so funny because, you know, one of the things that I always objected about those old 1970s era Avalon Hill Classics and whatnot was, oh, they're too simple. Okay, but it's in a different sort of way, right? The rules are simple. The thinking, and this was what they always sold it as, thinking man's games. Well, I'm not a thinking man, damn it. I'm a fucking dice chucker. I really am. I like some of the aspects this is doing. I think it's taking that model and putting another layer of accuracy and believability to it, but it's still that fucking model that burns my brain if I want to try to play it and it's worse at it. It's worse at it, damn it. Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I'm close to giving up on this, even though I know I can play it. I know I can play it badly. That's the thing. That's what frustrates me. I can play it. I can probably get the rules right most of the time, but I'm gonna suck at it so badly. And I don't mind, like, you know, I kind of don't mind playing these things opposed as much as I do solo, because usually people I play against opposed are worse than I am, and I'm helping them learn how to play it. But also, you know, even if they're better, it's okay. You know, it's an opposed game. It's more about the social aspects. But trying to play something like this solitaire is just fucking killing me. I guess I made my decisions. I'm able to launch an attack here. This can cover my artillery. This unit's going to sit here because I don't know what the fuck to do with them, and I'm launching an attack there. Great. But, you know, it's taken me an hour to do this player turn. It really has. And I look at a map this size, and it shouldn't do this to me. It shouldn't do it to me. And like with the modern Euros and whatnot that have a thinking, those worker placement things, you can chase down the rabbit hole and think the hell out of them. You could also just say, screw it, I'm just doing shit and fuck it all. And to me, that's not how games are meant to be played. Now, if I'm in a social experience where I'm playing with another person or playing with other people, I don't mind that much. It depends. In general, it had better be people I enjoy being with for that. If it's, sometimes I would go to the game store or whatever, and 4 out of the 5 people I don't really want to particularly be hanging around with, and I'm playing this thing, and there's someone who's like just gloating all over the place and everything, and yeah, I don't want to play with that kind of thing. And even with people I like, I don't like screwing up this badly. It's just not my idea of fun, right? To torture myself and know that I'm doing terribly. I don't mind being a kind of lousy opponent for people who are either not much better or not much worse than me at these kind of things, as long as I'm playing with them. But yeah, against myself, I just feel like my shortcomings are too heavy for it. So that's the end of the maneuver phase. We're not even done with the attacks that I've got here, but the attacks are the only fun thing anymore. I mean, all this maneuvering and trying to get around a corner or something. And that means I've got another fallback. So now I look at the German units and I try to decide, can they hold this line? Do they want to be here? And I'm just like, fuck that too. I don't give a shit. I really don't. And it doesn't help when there's blue things that look almost gray. It's that same color there. And I just feel like, oh, what the hell are the Germans doing there? All right. Well, I guess the Germans aren't going to do a damn thing. And we're going to look for a bombardment. There can't be any bombardments left. Oh, I got an air support left that I could use. I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. Once I start getting into this pathological state of, I know that I'm fucking a lot of stuff up. And this is how I make decisions in my life as well, right? I have to get into this kind of pathological state and then just almost randomly start making bullshit decisions, which is how I ended up in Phoenix, to tell you the truth, which wasn't so bad, but it also, and it followed a good route in certain ways, but it's like, it's like I don't feel like I'm making decisions using all the best knowledge that I have and the best thinking that I have. What I feel like has happened is I've gotten myself into such a fucking mess mentally, both in the game and in real life, where I could see myself taking a job that maybe I will end up hating very quickly. Somebody. Oh! You probably didn't see them, but there's a couple little turkeys there. But it's like, once I get tied up into I can't make this decision, what it comes to is there's just this circular thinking, the analysis paralysis, where it's just like, I fucking hate it, I hate life, I hate everything about what I'm doing, and then eventually I just say, fine, I'll just cut the fucking Gordian knot and do something, and it's probably not the best goddamn thing in the world, and honestly, like, going down to Phoenix, overall, it was a fine decision, but the decision involved something that almost had me roll over an SUV because I decided to drive. You know, something that I had no idea how to drive. And it's just, that's the way life is that when you're in this state, you can no longer make good decisions. So fuck it. Where's the goddamn airport going? You know, where is it going to go? I don't know. This looks pretty damn important. This could dispose of that whole thing, but it's terrain. So no, we don't want to. We don't want to drop a bomb in terrain. We're not going to have a prepared attack that's dangerous, are we? Yeah, we got one there. That might be a better place for it. Because the prepared attacks give me a +1 on the bombardment table. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, screw it. Well, that was fun. Every now and then we have to have a rant, don't we? Alright, so attacks here failed. Attacks here failed. These guys got hurt. Attack here succeeded. In some ways, I think it's the Germans who maybe wanted to withdraw, but I don't know. All the decisions are so hard. Like, do the remnants want to stand? Well, I don't know. You know? I gotta check the rules on this thing. I don't know if he's shaken or not. He didn't have a retreat on him, but and I think he just falls back from taking a hit. What else fucking happened? These are prepping. Ah, yes. So this attack didn't work, and I combined both these units against it. Then why is he... Oh, so he was half strength, so I had to bring this in here. I don't think much happened. I don't know. There may have been a casualty from it. Yeah, there was a casualty on the Germans. They decided to hold where they were. These guys succeeded. Now I get to advance. And again, there's the, yeah, but do I want to? I don't know. I really don't know. I have no idea. I really have no fucking clue. And that's the problem. That's the problem with the game. For me, you know. So yeah, I'm on the advanced phase. Great. I guess. Why not? Battle advance. Does that do anything? Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing I gotta check. Hey, did I just dislodge something that has to move now? Here, you know, I had better take it because it looks like it's important to take. But, yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing so because of this unit. But now I've just done something, haven't I? No, because he can trace his supply back to the Soissons thing. So moving here would have degraded him. He would have had to flee if he was somewhere else on the map, not close to Soissons. So that's going to be, I guess, the German side. I need to get away from this. I wish I could motivate myself to go to the river. But like most things in my life, except for squirrels, I know that, and I only really like them. You know, it's funny. I used to like squirrels a lot. All right, all kind of fuzzy little animals. Then we had a bird feeder, my first wife and I, and the squirrels would steal from the bird feeder, and I grew into a battle with squirrels the same way my dad did over trying to protect the house from being eaten by them and lived in by them. And so I became kind of anti-squirrel, but then my second wife loved squirrels so much that, like, now I'm pro-squirrel again. There he is. But yeah, if I go down to the river, I'm not going to really enjoy it. I know that. I mean, maybe, even when I'm with someone, and the only person I've been with to go to the river with was my wife, it's sort of a, oh geez, is it really worth all the effort and everything? But at least like there's something there. Walking is one thing. I don't mind the walking, because the walking I can think and I can feel pain or whatever it is I do during walks now. I no longer really think, I just hurt. But the idea of what I would actually do there, I would like, what, sit in the water for 5 minutes and then have to walk home wet. I mean, there's just nothing there. Like, I don't know. It's so much of life is that way. All right, whatever. Okay, ran through the German turn rather quickly. Really just throwing some reinforcements into the line. This guy is trying to shift his way further over. These guys are actually doing something to try to hold the line. Couldn't move this out. Probably want to withdraw it during the PM turn, just to get it away from the from being disrupted and losing its artillery fire at some point in the future on the next day or whatever. I do have a question here. So obviously I can retreat back this way 3 hexes, but if I choose to retreat towards Soissons, things get more complicated. I don't remember there being a rule. So normally units, when they retreat towards the Soissons border, or the objective hexes, they retreat no further than it, and obviously because the Entente can win the game, well, can end the game by taking a Soissons objective hex, things start changing. And I'm getting close enough there that I got to start worrying about counting victory points and seeing where I am. So I don't think, here's one I don't have. But other than that, I don't think there are any non-objective hexes that I'm going to get penalized for. So I've got a -2 on my hands there. It's each AM, PM turn that counts. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, be 7 victory points for ending the game, say, on next AM turn. And then -2 puts me to 5. And what have I gained? Well, I gained this. That puts me up to 8. This is worth 1. That's 9. Nothing. I don't think there's any others I'm getting any points for. So if I end the game at this point, I'm close to, I'm at the low end of the draw ratio. Now, obviously, I want to optimize my victory points, but I don't want to end up on the, on the downside of them. If I'm no longer gaining essentially a victory point a turn, yeah, I've got problems from this point on. Like, I want to end the game at the point where I stop getting a victory point a turn at least. But, again, huge bonus if I can hit this at the same time that I exit the map. That would win me the game. So that would be the goal. And there's some possibility. I mean, there's some serious weakness here where driving right at the point where I can exit the map and grab a Soissons hex and get double victory points for the turns. Now, the thing is, this is quite a bit of distance. There's not much troops there, but it's quite a bit of distance. So that may not be an easy option for me. Anyway, I'm fatigued as hell, just doing the AM turn. and having my rant and whatnot. You know, my time schedule is so fucking screwed up right now. We'll move on to the PM turn, but I don't have the energy to do it right now. You know, the German turn was trivial, though. Yeah, right? It took no effort. They have so little to do in terms of decisions. The only thing they have is the, hey, figure out the geometry the same way that the Allies are doing, which solo is, you know, I'm probably going to get the same answer both ways. And so, you know, if I screw up for both people, and there's no clear blunder. It just, if I do figure it out that there's a retreat like I did in the one place, well, I figure it out when I figure it out, which and whoever it is who figures it out gets the bonus out of it. But yeah, it's the same kind of thinking, and chances are I'm gonna find it. I'm either gonna find it in the German turn when they're setting up, or I'm gonna find it kind of by accident on the Entente turn when I move into a place and say, "Oh, that looks ooh." You know, like, so the deliberate person who's going to be setting it up is the Germans with their defense, and then, you know, obviously the Entente is probably not going to be able to find a way of breaking that by just thinking about it, because it's still me. Okay, so the Entente starts their PM turn, and I didn't find anywhere I wanted. Maybe I'm lying there. Maybe I moved a tank. Trying to think. No, I almost did, but I chose not to. I dropped both my artillery in there. Germans choose to hold their artillery response until the low intensity attacks, because, well, not so much. The thing is, with 1 point, I'm unlikely to get much effect, right? So I might get a disruption, but I'm not going to get anything more than that. And disruptions on the attacker, well, they do have the strength, so let's take a look at what I've got here. Let me make sure I want to do this. I got 14 strength points to 2. That gets me up to 7 to 1. If I were to cut 4 of those away, that would get me down to the 4 to 1 table, 5 to 1 technically. It just doesn't seem worth it to launch the attack for that. So I'd rather do it somewhere where it's going to have more effect. So, you know, if it works, right? It's really kind of a, hey, this is unlikely because I don't have any prep markers down. So let's take care of those assaults. Both of those were successful. Here I actually set X to 2, even though it just meant an extra level of shock and a retreat, because this unit is going to be withdrawable or withdrawn next turn anyway. That may be an iffy choice, because I've just reduced its strength down to 4, but that means I would have gotten a 5 to 1 if I launch another attack on here. So, you know, I'm just looking at it as it's just not going to make that big a difference. About half the board, the part where I'm making gains with the Entente, but I looked here and I'm like, oh shit, I'm real close to being knocked out of a position here. Now there's a zone here, a zone here. Zone of influence, though, doesn't go here because there's a zone of control. So the Entente still has a trace going back. That was a little worrisome. I'm having a hard time, though, figuring out, like, I looked down through all of this, and here's some artillery that didn't get used yet. And I'm just like, I don't see an attack I want to make, especially a hasty attack. Prepared attacks, maybe. Down here, we've crushed enough units that Hasties seem of value, like I'm going to gain ground. And then there's a bunch more units coming in tomorrow. It's going to be easier for the Germans to throw things into the line quickly because we're almost on their side of the map. So we may be at close to where I'm going to get if I don't cross the line. So, although I'm not close to crossing the line, so I don't have to make that choice quite yet. Victory point wise, I think I'm probably ahead in victory points now, to the extent that if I cross the line, I can get it, well, at least to the draw that I had before. Are there any locations that I'm being penalized for? I don't think so. Which means I get 1 point here, 4 total, as long as I keep that. Might be some risk. 5. Looks like I'm about 5 points up there. About. So 5 points plus 1, 2. Well, I'm not going to have it this turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 6 puts me to 11, which is still in the draw range. Obviously, if I can hit both at once, that works, and that may be the case because there's some density here, and what's here is likely to get reinforced. But I may be pushing it really hard to try to get to a Soissons hex. Wow. And I'm making sure to attack with all the units that I have to withdraw. That's one issue. I'm looking here, like this doesn't need to be withdrawn. Oh, this is mine. Yeah, so I have like this that I could throw in. That would be a 5-1 at -1. That's not great odds. And I'm facing similar problems here. So like this one could be a 9-4, which is like 2-1 at even. I can't throw this in because that would have to attack here if I did. Well, I mean, something has to attack that if that unit's attacking. Over here, I'm looking at not much. 6, 7, 13 to 2. That's pretty good odds. 6-1. I got some artillery I'm not using. So I'm +1 plus, well, we don't know. I'm +1. 6-1 at +1. -2. Oh, not 6-1 because these are reforming. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's much that I can do here. I will make sure to fire off. I notice I have a couple of artillery that didn't get a shot in. I'll make sure to do that, but I think I'm pretty much locked in here. I want to move this a little closer. Just a little closer. I don't really want to throw my unit adjacent to the enemy. Always having trouble figuring out who owns something, because like the tanks are on top. I guess I could bury them in the stack, but I kind of need to see them, but I also kind of need to see this. The hexes are big enough I can do shit like that, but then that throws my OCD into all hell. Alright, I guess this is what we're going with, and then we go to bombardment. The Germans have their bombardment still. They probably want to use it now. This sucks. Like, you know, if I do bombard, it's not going to do shit. I mean, I might as well, but let's say I bombard this for 1. Well, maybe I disorder him or whatever, but he'll recover. I might get lucky, right? Let me see. Let's flip it back over. I hate that I have to flip it to get the combat stuff that I need. So if I get a 6, I get a big D, that disorders him fully. He'll only recover 1 of that. If I'm right. Let me see. I don't remember. I don't remember a damn thing. And yeah, because the rule book has so much and has pretty pictures and whatnot, not these don't bug me. It's these because they all look the same. I'm having a hard time finding the recovery rules. One thing that I know is that usually the rules are all here. So then I look for that in the sequence of play. I mean, reorganization. Yeah, 1 level for the Germans. So yeah, I could get something lucky here. Likewise here, where there's no real where I'm not just wasting a shot. There's a 1 in 6 chance that I do something that actually has some impact. There's not going to be any such equivalent if I'm firing with a penalty. I guess, I don't know. Technically, this shot where I'm not marking, I'm not doing an attack on, I have to do later, I think. I don't know. No, a second bombardment can be at any point, any hex, yeah, okay. I just don't resolve it. When do I resolve it? Resolve remaining bombardments, and that's for both sides, okay. Yeah, and the non-phasing, I guess, does his, yeah, just like before any attacks. Okay. The Germans do still have an artillery fire. I think I used up these guys, though. Be careful again with the geometry. I fucking hate having to do this. I'm halfway, like, I'm going to complete this video for this day, but half of me is just like, I don't know if I can do another 3 days of this. Maybe if I just don't video and come in really, really light and and make my mistakes, you know, rules, errors and whatnot, and just say screw it, because, but then what use is there, you know? I don't know. Yeah. Because I remember, you know, enjoying things like Africa Corps when I just played them and said, screw it, I don't really care. I'm not, you know, I'm not really bothering too much with the geometry of it, and cool, you know, it's just dice chucking or whatever, and it's not. And then, and same thing with the, I don't know, there's a few others that I felt that way about. But when I feel like I'm trying to expose play or something, I just get so much more frustrated, and it's just like, yeah, because I have to try to expose what kind of thinking goes into the game and everything. That means I actually have to do it, and I fucking hate doing it. And I don't mind if I'm playing something incorrectly and just, you know, pushing some pieces around. And I figure maybe the errors will run themselves out. But yeah, this is, I never liked, and you get this when I do something like Africa Corps, where I'm like, I remember really kind of liking this game, but now that I'm doing it on video, I fucking hate it. And that might be the case with this. I might have liked this if I didn't explore how to play it. You know, like, didn't try to understand the geometric play of it. And I don't know. And maybe I would fucking hate brass now that I know that like some of the things that you do in brass and you have to remember and everything, it felt so sort of intuitive to go to a Euro game that I really, really liked, and then played it against someone who knew what they were doing, and I'm like, oh wow, I don't really understand what's going on here, apparently. Into the Entente PM turn, we had successes here and here. I didn't advance here. I'll get into that in a moment. Failure, failure, successes, and then nothing happened up here, although I did have that bombardment. But okay. So what's up here? So this is interesting. I could have advanced into here, but that's getting me into a really threatened position. I'm maybe in a threatened position anyway, right? So these guys have to be able to trace a supply line back. Now, they're able to wind around a little bit, as long as they don't go backwards ever. Germans could move. Well, only if they can force a withdrawal. Germans could move 1, 2 into here, say. Here, say. That would cut this thing off and maybe regain me some territory. Would also send the artillery flying back, all kind of problems. So what are the retreat rules? Now I'm going to need to switch batteries. I need to know the retreat rules, though, that the Entente faces, which is a peculiar situation. But I had no opportunity to fill this out once I made the decision to make those attacks. I think I was already locked into combat, and now the Germans have a capability to screw with the Entente position, I think, where they're advancing the fastest. And this is essentially a counterattack, even though I'm not going to probably be making any attacks. A little fuzzy for the Entente retreat direction. The shortest path in hexes from the unit to the friendly map edge that enters the smallest possible number of enemies you'll see. There's not a precedence listed there. I'm going to take it as first. This has been asked in the errata or on BGG. I just don't have the effort. I'm not one of those people who likes to get the correct answer all the time. It's probably important here, but what that means is my retreat would have to be the shortest path first, and then enter the fewest ZOCs as the secondary. What I don't have, as I didn't find the supply yet, there we go. The Entente supply is contiguous, pass back. It may never move closer to the enemy map edge. And so what could happen here? Again, 1, 2, 3, I think cuts me off because I can't trace this way. This would be covered. I can't trace this way. These units are not retreating, so I may have to do something. It may be, do I have an opportunity to fall back before maneuver? I do. So since I found it now, the Entente is aware of their problem. They just noticed it. They didn't make the advance because of that problem. And I got to do something about it. That might be a fallback here. That might cover me. I got to think about things, right? Retreat path has to be the shortest possible path, which would be straight to here. So I would not be allowed to retreat to cover my ground. The question: do I want to make this advance, and or this guy was involved? Do I want to make this advance instead? Because let's see, shortest distance. This and this are equidistant, so you might be able to stretch back a little better. And then you got to constantly count, so like this might be equivalent to this. Oh, God, I hate this shit. Like I said, the geometries are where it goes to hell. Now, The Germans don't have any such flexibility, and the Entente shouldn't get itself in this kind of position. That's going to put it on the German turn, and I have no will to go on. When I walked away from the game, and I'm not coming back to play right now, but my immediate thought was, well, you know, the geometric puzzle, why is that such a difference from, say, like a CRT puzzle, right? So, you know, the old style CRTs were really simple. This one is not terribly complicated. It's pretty easy to figure out what you can expect from what you do from the CRT on this. But if you're looking at a game like Operational Combat Series that I really like, or you're looking at a game with a complicated sequence of checks that are made, sometimes the probabilities aren't very easy. And there's a puzzle there that you can figure out in order to play well. And in order to play this well, there's a geometric puzzle you have to figure out. Now, one part of it may be, I never liked geometry, like at all. Why do I like Go? I don't know. I don't want to think about that. But Go's patterns, like the patterns that show up in some of those, you know, earlier war games, mainly operational style games, where, you know, you have to worry about soaking attacks and all that. Well, both of those are familiar to me. I've learned to cope with them, right? The price to entry to certain games I like was the patterns of those older games. The price to entry for Go, well, that's a harder one to decide. Basically, I played Go very, very, very badly, and then learned how to play it a little less badly, you know. But somehow that ramp up was really a great thing. Now, this is neither a model for a whole bunch of other games that I'm gonna get more than the geometry from, because I'm only gonna get the geometry from it until I get a certain level of mastery to that, or whatever. Anyway, you only get the geometry from Go, so I don't know where I'm going with that. But there is a significant difference and this is what I realized while I was cooking. I just ended up babbling off on a tangent, which is that a geometric puzzle like this, not only is it necessary in order to play well, it's necessary in order to play right. You don't notice the geometric issue that forces a withdrawal or whatever. You don't notice the geometry correctly for even the older games where supply is out or whatever. And you do not play the game by the rules, right? You know, you fail to do the automatic withdrawal. You fail to realize units are going to be destroyed because they're isolated in other games, whatever. Whereas, if I don't get the puzzle in a complex CRT, that's okay. I can still play it poorly, but by the rules, right? Just like I can play Go poorly, but by the rules, whether or not I know the answer to the given puzzles that I'm working with. So yeah, there is a significant difference between the two. There really is. The geometric puzzle is more like a really, really complex procedural set of rules that I will never be able to memorize, and that I'm constantly having to look up how I have to play the game in order to do it. That I'm constantly expending energy. Now, there's a difference. I might learn the geometric tricks to this. I would never learn a procedural game. That just won't, a game that's presented too procedurally, I just won't be able to capture. But it comes to hey, how many times and how many clues do people have to give me and whatever for me to be able to do it, and what is the payoff? And right now the payoff for this particular mechanism is this game. that's not enough. Looking at the board a little more, I think, and again, let's work out the puzzle, but this is what it fucking costs to do, right? I think I can pull back to here, and this alone is good enough. Why? Well, let's see. What happens if we move to here with the Germans? First of all, we do not have enough movement points to get there right now, but we will over the night, so, you know, I don't know. But let's say I fall back to here. That means a placement here fucks this unit. Fall back to here probably covers me. I don't know for sure, but there's zones here and here, so I'm not going to get through that. So a fall back to here covers this unit. And here's the thing. If this unit goes, right, because it's cut off, then that immediately makes this unit have to go and this unit have to go. So yeah, that's not going to work. All right. So if I fall back to here, I've got this part covered. Do I have this covered? Yes. Well, maybe. It depends on how you take the wording, right? Because the wording here is a path of contiguous hexes that can be traced back. It can no point move closer to the friendly map, to the enemy map edge. Okay, so it doesn't have to be the closest path. That's good. So what was I saying? I was saying to here. Right now I'm on that voluntary withdrawal. Let's put this here. That gives up some significant space. But now I can't get through here. I can't get through here. Well, here. Therefore, I think I'm protected. And I think that's enough to cover the unit. But yeah, it weakens my advance. But I opened a gap, right? And now let's make sure there's another gap here. Oh joy, this one's a lot harder for the Germans to cope with, to make any kind of problem with, and it's been there for a while, but now that we're paying attention, let's make sure I've got things covered here too. So, and again, there's an obvious gap, but that obvious gap can be exploited in this system in a much, much worse way than it can be under most systems. So Germans are going to have how much movement? It looks like 6 points. So they could pull here, 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 and they've cut that unit off. So we're screwed again, which means I need to do another voluntary withdrawal. That voluntary withdrawal, first of all, this artillery might be forced to withdraw. There's not much I can do about that. I should have not moved it forward. But if I voluntarily withdraw to here, that should cover it. But this is pretty safe because I've got a lot of territory back there that I can trace through. This doesn't do it because, again, it's this unit I'm worried about. So there we go. And how long was I sitting here in this situation? I don't know, because, I'm not trained to think in these particular kind of patterns, right? And I'm too much of a curmudgeon at this point in my life to want to be trained in these new patterns. But yeah. So there we have that. Well, are we screwed here? No, there's 2 hexes connecting. Again, the colors, these guys are green, these guys look, well, they're blue for French, but it looks close enough to what I would assume is the German color, which isn't. Yeah, I have problems. Because you have that kind of bluish here, All right, so I think that's good enough, and that gets me to the German maneuvers. But before any of that happened, we had a problem where this unit... Oh no, that's an Entente unit. Okay. Can't fucking tell because these colors don't register for me. Yeah. So this unit would have been in trouble if it was German, but it's not. It's in a lot of risk, but I can't move it. I would have had to withdraw it back in the Entente phase. Again, it's not easy for me to pay attention to moving my pieces that much during an opponent's turn. You know, I look and I say, yeah, it looks okay. I got, you know, this, whatever. But yeah, this is, remember, it's easier. In fact, it's screwed, isn't it? No, because there's zones of control. Oh, no, it's screwed. No, it's not, because it's Soissons. Yeah, but it's close to being screwed, and I really don't want to be here. That's the main thing. I want to be back here when I look at this situation. I don't know that I've had a chance to withdraw yet, though, to say in my own defense, because this situation was created through low intensity attacks. So I have not had an opportunity to rectify what's there, and I still do not. I can't fall back during my own turn, which feels horrible. Like, I feel like I should be able to do an emergency retreat during my own turn. That would just be something I would throw in as part of the maneuver thing, that you can call yourself a voluntary retreat at any time during your maneuver. Not, yeah. I think that would help a lot, because some of it is the fixed sequence of play. You know, when you're doing your maneuvers, when you're figuring out what your line's going to be, right? And when you do your fallbacks. But this is not going to be where it is when I come to the night turn. When I get my first chance to get out of there, I will. I haven't had that chance yet, and I really want it right now. I want to be able to fall back a little bit right now. Even with the Entente movements here, I'm not thrilled with, even with the Entente withdrawals, I'm not thrilled with where I'm sitting. There's a gap here. Again, it was opened up just now, but I got to do something about it. Well, at least I have these units. I can detach one of them to get to there. I could also fall back with this. Probably want to pull my artillery back. Pull that back there. This I can't do a damn thing about, even though I want to give that hex up. Two hexes is dangerous with the Germans. But I don't have any capability to maneuver things, and I can't really tell you what it's going to look like until I do my emergency fallbacks. I kind of don't want to do emergency fallbacks. I'd rather move because I get a withdrawal marker on an emergency fallback. The advantage is it's going to be nighttime. I think I get them at night. Yeah, not emergency, voluntary fallbacks. I do get them at night, and the nice thing is I don't pay a price at night. I pay a price if I do them during the day, because then I'm retreating, which means if I have to fall back again, I take disorganization levels. But as it stands, I think I'm okay. That was maneuver. Non-phasing player gets to fall back again. Turns out well, maybe I want to think here. I got a little bit of room up here. Yeah, this is holding pretty well. I think it's okay. Is this German or is it? Yeah, that's a German unit. That means this probably needs to do something. Help cover the gap there. Okay. No fallback, no bombardment, right? I fired this. No attacks, no advance. End of operations. It's nighttime. Oh boy. All right, I need another break. Again, you know, just too much about maneuvering and trying to set up geometric traps and puzzles. Okay, so we're starting the night turn, and I want to think about my spent divisions that I have to remove at this point. I went and found my rules on spent divisions, and it says they're still considered spent for all purposes. They will no longer be able to attack. That sounds pretty damn decisive in answering the question that I had a little while ago. Command and disruption. Yeah, so it's here. Okay. And that makes sense. So I probably want to remove them unless they are holding a vital section of my line, which is becoming more and more the case, that I'm like, oh shit, I got things, and then I may have to keep them just to keep the. I mean, I could maybe move, and reposition how my line's set up. We'll see. Identified 2 spent units, and importantly, they're here. It's the spearhead of my attack. Here, it's vital to holding my position. Are they worth a victory point each? Geez, I don't know. And I'm only, I guess, allowed to maintain 3 spent divisions on the map throughout the course of the game, unless countermix doesn't apply to that, which would seem kind of weird. I feel like I have a lot of extra counters that, things like this, that I only need 3 of these, maybe, if I don't know. But anyway, yeah, this is going to be a hard call. So if I say he goes away, can I afford? Oh boy. I mean, this is really a hard call, and I can't use them for attacking at all, but they can help me fill the gaps that I'm having so much trouble with. So right now, this one's worth a victory point. I pull that out of there, and he's no longer worth that point. What am I getting for reinforcements? I'm basically getting a unit in this core, a unit in this core, and a unit in this core. I almost feel like I got to keep the units. This could be involved in some sort of swap or just hold my position there. It's just restricted from attacking. Oh, he's really shaking. Yeah, see, I've got this nice big hole, and I feel like these units are going to be necessary if I'm going to get a dual advance at once. On the other hand, that dual advance is getting less and less valuable the more turns go by. Ugh. Let me think some more. So I took the lead one off. I'm keeping this guy here, and I guess I put the marker there. I don't like it, but the Germans don't like having to remove 2 of their remnants, and those are coming from in this general area, which, that's a weak spot again. So, yeah. Does that guarantee a problem here? I don't think so, because this, so I'd have to go around this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would take, I don't know. So 6 would get me to there. This would still have its supply line. This would still have its supply line. Of course, it just gives a fresh run right through, but that was a really beat up unit. whereas these are not quite as beat up. When do they? Yeah, they get to reform after disruption recovery, which means I'll get a full regiment back there. That'll be awfully nice because I have those two stacked together. So I think this is the way I go. Artillery, I bet you I got some. We got one medium for each, for whatever value that is. And now we look to see if we can blow a hole in stuff. Seeing a lot of retreat markers here that should have been removed during the German turn, and I did not. I don't know why. Did I play the German turn? I assume so. Seem to remember doing so. Did I not? Did I forget the German turn? I don't know. I fasted at the very least because I want this back there. This guy did not want to move yet because, so yeah, I had that weird thinking. I definitely played it. I had that weird thinking where I'm like, oh geez, you know, I can't fall back during my movement because that allows the enemy to come forward, and then, but if I withdraw, I get to recover from the withdrawal. If I withdraw during the Allied night turn, I get to recover during my night turn. But I don't necessarily have, like, I don't have the line in front of me that I construct, so I won't see all of its weaknesses as easily. But then again, I didn't realize, yeah, I'm going to lose some of my remnants that my line is dependent upon. All right. I got things that don't make sense. I've got a disorganized unit there with a reform marker on it. I'll put a shock on there. I don't know if that's correct or not. But that means I probably want to hit this instead. Neither of my deployments make any sense because this one's at -1 for night and -1 for not being adjacent, and same thing for this. So let's rethink these and see if there are any attacks that I might want to make, because -2 I'm not going to hit. So I don't know. Is there anything I care about? This has -1 due to terrain. That means I'm not going to hit it. I think I can throw away the Entente gunfire. I'll put it somewhere, just, I don't know. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Screw it. What about for the Germans? Does their gunfire help at all? Is there anywhere where they're adjacent? Yeah, there is. Isn't there? I don't know. Probably not. Well, wait a minute. It's a big D if I hit. A big D means it's not recovered. Oh, and this thing could certainly get hit. Okay, let's go there. What about the Germans? Well, a big D is useful. Oh, where? Again, I want to go where terrain is clean. I guess I'll hit this. I don't know. A lot of thought for something that really wasn't likely to do anything and didn't. Okay. Now to the Entente movement, and now I got to be careful because this is when the Germans have to do their withdrawals that they've got planned that I will forget about. But I also have to be real careful with the Entente movement and try to figure out what the fuck I'm doing. We have 8 movement points for good, 4 for not. It costs 5 to drop a prepared. I was talking about all my retreats for the Entente. I forgot about this one, and of course the Germans also forgot about it because I'm the same person during their turn. Yeah, I mean, I walked away and came back, but they're the Germans. They don't generally see things because they don't generally see that there's an opportunity to attack because that's not their mindset. But yeah, there would have been an opportunity to move next to this and force it to run. I think I'm happy because the terrain is good enough for it, so the Entente's going to pull back there. I was wrong. It's not safe for the Germans to be like this because I have 8 movement points, not 6. I am not redoing it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to here. Gets rid of my prepared. I don't get a prepared marker, but I make a lot of ground. And now this guy's got a zone directly behind him. That's the direction this way. The direction this way has to be 4 hexes or less. There's no way I can do that. I spent 5 movement points. Let's put that there. I got to remember that. And he has to retreat 1, 2, and I could go here. And now has a withdrawal marker. And I mean, this is the kind of thing I'm just not going to be able to see it. And the shit's going to happen, you know? Especially because it's the Entente who's thinking more along those lines than the Germans. The Germans are thinking kind of, well, I mean, they put some thought into it, and now the other player saw that they're wrong. And yeah, you know, there are certain games where that's just part of the game. That's just the way you play it is, did I see things differently than you did, and now we argue about the rules, or we look it up, or we say, oh, yeah, you got me, man. And it's a chess-like feeling to me. The only equivalent to that in Go for me is getting mugged in the corner, where, you know, you move into the corner. You're not used to fighting in the corners because you're used to playing games and maybe giving up at some point or another fairly early. And, you know, the countings and the positionings are just fucking different in the corner. It looked like I was safe. Nope. Same kind of position I would have been in at the start of the game. Of course, at the start of the game, I would have been like, just learning. Had I noticed, I would have reset everything up, I guess, you know, because it's not reasonable, you know. It's time to tip over the king when you make a stupid move like that right at the beginning. But at this point, honestly, I think that my goals here are to get the Entente to their victory conditions so they can declare the win, which may be a reason that I should just stop on this video and not go on, because, you know, it's just fucking frustrating. And it's not, yeah. It's frustrating, and I'm going to be playing, I'm going to start allowing mistakes to happen. And just like let somebody get destroyed because of them. But yeah. Big question now. The Entente still has 3 movement points, which I may use, because my danger now is, hey, what about this guy? He could just run behind. And now it's beginning to feel like Hitler's War, where I knew I would work this in somewhere, because something about this was making me think of that, where, like, at least the way I play, you're just creating pocket after pocket with one another. But the thing is, movement in Hitler's War is based on die rolls. So you take chances to attack the person. Here, it's not really like that because it's completely chess-like in terms of the movement. So now I have 3 more movement points. I could keep pressing forward. I can push to here, which looked like a good place before, but I had more units before. What may be more important is this, which I seem to have lost. I lost control because now there's a trace going there. But wait, did I lose control? Because then I can't move into it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So now we look up the movement rules. And I mean, you know, it's just, this and so the zones and the influence and how retreats and what are forced through isolation, and then like this idea of, oh, did I just lose control of this city by moving? Things like that, they're just so against what my expectations are when I'm playing a war game. Let me look and see. See, part of the problem is I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do if I stop playing this, because it's still supposed to be hot. But I don't know. For all that there's duplication in the rules, I'm having a hell of a time finding where the movement point cost for a town is. Well, I mean, I can look here. Not that. 2 when controlled by the enemy. Okay, it gives me a reference. At least there's that. Because I could not find anything that referenced what determines whether I own the town. And that's going to be over here, 3.34. Okay. If it's occupied or a contiguous pass free of any entente cannot be traced from the town to the German eastern map edge. Oh, there's no Soissons? Doesn't matter. From the town location to the eastern. Yeah. So it's a contiguous path. It can be of any length, but can never. So, yeah. So I lost control of this town by being there, which means I can move to here, but I can't move to here. Is this sufficient? I don't know. Fuck it. We'll see. I run back after scaring him. I don't know how much value scaring him was. Because now I feel like I'm kind of in a more exposed position. But he's not coming back for any time. And this guy at least isn't going to be able to screw with me. Have I moved everything else? I don't know. Nah, I still got a few units here that I haven't moved. I don't think I've moved that artillery. But yeah, when you put interruptions like that in too, it disrupts your entire... what have I moved, what haven't I? I rotate counters to indicate, but there's a lot of counters that don't move. They either just get a prepare marker dropped on them, or they get... they have a retreat marker on them. Why does that have a retreat? I don't know. I assume it belongs there. Right, I think I'm done with the Entente movement. I ran away with the artillery again. I don't want him to be disrupted by some kind of probe or something like that could happen. I just... the system, you know, being able to determine, hey, would it be a good idea for him to do that? I don't know. You know, it's kind of like the situation here. Would it be a good idea to chase that? I don't know. I doubt it, because artillery is so ineffectual. Like, driving off one medium artillery is not that big a deal. The terrain I'm sitting in defensively is that big a deal. Similarly here. Now, with this I have an interesting situation. I don't actually have to withdraw with everything. Because, you know, I was thinking about doing a withdrawal here. That doesn't, I don't need to. I can just move and then not be as restricted in my movement. So then the question becomes, well, what is my front line? And yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what my front line is. Maybe I don't want this guy here. Maybe I want him back here. If I move him back there, then I can move a space this way, although that gives up some defensive terrain. And yeah, I just don't know. You know, I don't know what my front is. It's like somebody can walk through my front. Okay, yeah, I left a gap. And now I'm threatened in a way that I have to run away or something, and it's just, it's too much for my mind to take on. Once upon a time, when I was younger, I might have seen this and said, oh my God, this is so concept breaking, this is destroying my ideas, I love it for that. And really gotten into it about that, because there were games that did that, you know, that would have blown me away, and it makes me happy that they do. Now it irritates, and I think that's got something more to do with, you know, my age and the changes than anything to do, you know, with the particular circumstances of this game versus some other game where I was like, oh, that's the coolest thing, that you can do this little braking maneuver. It's intentional in this, right? It's part of the design in this, as opposed to, oh, this rule means this. And it's not like a gamey type of trying to break the system, but it feels like the same kind of thinking, and that's the kind of thinking that maybe I've become somewhat reluctant towards. You know, SFB, for example, was all about trying to find that tricky set of, you know, maneuvers, attacks, weapons, whatever, that I could kind of violate the opponent's position so they don't know what's coming. And I feel like this game kind of bakes in that kind of thinking. I don't know. Just something where it's like, oh, it's so cool that I can do this. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't get to that village. This unit, which only has 4 movement points, has moved up to here and cut off this guy's supply. Oops. There he goes. Great. Now I got a couple more movement points. That means I can cover the ground that I need to here. And yeah, you know, we just drove the Entente back. Again, just maneuvering. Keep working our way up. Caused a problem though. So it looked like it opened the way up so that I can move these units of the 28th Division into position and cover my ground there. I can't. Well, I could, but they'll start fucking with each other's supply line if I do that, I think. I don't know. There's something that prevents you, and it's not just the supply rules. Basically, 28th is part of this corps, and it does something else, and like I said, I'm about ready to cash this in, so I'm not going to look that up. I know the supply rules won't do it, but there's something else that, like, prevents you from doing that, I think. I don't know for sure. Oh. Because we're getting to an area of the weird shit in the rules that I haven't seen the implications of, but I remember it from when I started. So, it's not in the German supply line. It's the command lines, but is it isolation? Because if it's not supply or isolation, I'm okay. Defense is just fine. So yeah. So this is going to cause me headaches at some point. It's not supply line. It is only command line. And I actually don't care if I'm in command, do I? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I move here to 5 because that's going to fuck up his prepared attack on this position. And now that opens this up. No, that doesn't open anything up. The problem, of course, is that unit, which is my hull. But I'm willing to, again, allow things to go into there, I think. Whereas filling this back end up is more important. I don't know, because again, they could slip in, slip around, force me back, then I slip around him, force him back, and I just playing fucking pinball all the time here. What else do we have? Second player, voluntary fallback. I don't know. Yeah, and we're done here. I'm not going to play the remaining 3 turns out. This is just, it's too much for me. It's too much for me. I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's just not a game that I can play. And that's a shame. Because it's a sign of my mental incapacity, which may be a deterioration going on. But yeah, I just cannot face this. There may be other times in my life coming forward where I can. Right now, I cannot. All right, up it goes, and I will give what I can of a review of this. But yeah.